Hello everyone and welcome back to the second episode of our brand new realistic city series here in Cities Skylines 2. In the first episode I covered the many changes that I've made to this map to customize it a little and make it suit our needs a little better. And we also established the very first town, building this cozy town here on the kind of the central island of this island chain here. And we built a couple of different things. We've got a bit of a commercial strip here with a main avenue cutting through, which is, it actually transitions into a national road. This used to be a highway, but I downgraded it as I feel this level of infrastructure is a little more fitting by now. We built some suburban developments surrounding this commercial strip, and then we moved a bit down here, eastwards actually, to build the actual downtown of the town, as well as the massive fishing port, which is the backbone of its economy. We haven't actually named this town yet. In the first episode I asked for suggestions for you guys for the name of this town, as well as this county as a whole, and a backstory as well that could kind of justify us using hopefully quite a bit of European style assets as well, even though this is somewhere in North America. And I'm very happy to say that I've already gotten a ton of awesome suggestions. So I'm gonna hold off for a bit on naming because I am recording this episode relatively shortly after the first episode. So I'm gonna wait for a bit before we actually name it. But I guess what I'm saying is keep them coming. Now in this episode there are a couple of things I want to try and get done. One is just an expansion and a bit of a revamp of the harbor we built in the first episode. I'm not quite convinced by the shape and look of this, and I want it to be bigger and actually support more industry as we move on. And I'm also hopeful that I can bring in some rail infrastructure because that just makes the industrial areas look so much better. And I imagine that if this town is a major fish exporter to the remainder of the country, for instance, then we are gonna need railway transport as well, especially since we've got a line running right here. I guess the challenge is, of course, that this rail bridge here is very, very tall, and the reason is that the major shipping lanes actually cross this strait, so the bridges have to be tall. We're gonna see if we can work around that and make it look all right. And the second thing I want to try and implement is actually a bit of an old town, because if you remember from the first episode, whatever backstory we go with, I want these towns to be very, very old, at least in a North American context. So we're gonna need an old town with some very, very small, cozy alleys, lots of row houses, and maybe some odd street patterns as well. So I'm gonna try my best and create that. It's probably gonna be a bit gritty, or at least at 90-degree angles, because as you all know, that's how the assets actually work, and that's how we get the best look achievable. Before we continue though, here's a classic reminder from me. If you enjoy my content, consider liking this video. It really goes a long way, and if you don't want to miss out on future content, consider subscribing to the channel. Most of my viewers aren't actually subscribed, but it often helps reminding people to. Thanks in advance. Alright, so as mentioned, we'll be starting with the port areas, and there are a few things I want to do. One of them being adding some piers into this inner basin here, because I feel that there's a lot of open space here, and it would probably be more wisely used if we had a few piers that kind of stick out from these main streets here very close to downtown. And I think the second change I want to do is just expand on this pier and make it much larger and actually stick out a bit more, create some more unique angles than just having this weird loaf of bread sticking out. We're gonna try and implement both of these, and hopefully it's gonna free up even more space for industrial and office development, because we have actually just reached the Grand Village milestone, which is very nice. As you guys can see, it brings a bunch of cool features that we can start implementing, one of them being the low density offices. It would be really nice if we could actually reach Tiny Town in this episode by expanding the port a lot, because the mixed housing stuff is going to work so well with the old town we're gonna try and build, but we'll see if we get there. Let's start bringing out a pier here, and You'll know by now that the technique I like to use is just to work on land as much as possible, because the water physics really don't play nice in this game. It's kind of inherited that from its predecessor, but I think it's kind of even worse in Cities Skylines 2, to be honest. So I'm just gonna fill this up with land, then let the simulation run for a bit and hit pause again. And then I'm gonna start creating the pier I want. We're just gonna zoom out a bit here, so we've got a bit of a better look, so to say, of the area. And we might go for a bit of an angle as well. Maybe I should actually branch out here before I do anything. So perhaps something like this. And then I can see if I can actually align this a bit. Something like this is pretty good, I think. And I don't think we need much more for now, at least. So we're gonna start with this symbol shape. Just gonna expand this a bit. And then we're gonna reduce the size of our level terrain tool. Right click the seabed, and then I'm gonna try and follow the yellow line alongside Header Street here. It should make creating the actual keys much easier for us. And I say that each time, and it's always a big gamble on whether I mess up or it actually works. In the first episode, it worked almost on first try, so was kind of pleased with that. Let's see. I think so far so good, at least. And we've already got key walls here, fortunately, so that makes it a bit easier. But yeah, the moment of truth. We're gonna delete this and try and drag this across. And it seems we've got a 0.1% elevation change, which is about as good as I could have hoped. So very happy with that. And it's the same here. So it's as close to perfect as it's gonna get. And this one is actually perfect at 0%. So that is very, very nice. And I'm just gonna add in a bit of land again, because otherwise it's gonna give me an issue when I try to... I think I'm gonna drag a small road through here. We can always remove it, but it's much more tricky to actually place when there's water alongside the keys. Then dragging this road is gonna give some terraforming issues. It's gonna turn this road into a key, like an inland key, which is a bit awkward to work with. So we'll make it a road right now. And I am probably going to... Yeah, we're gonna downgrade this to an alley. Maybe we'll just keep this as a 2-lane road just to make it a little more interesting. Pretty happy with this. We're gonna right click and just make a bit of room for a bit of water, and then let that fill up so that it hopefully looks nice. Oh, look. We've actually got a pack of dolphins here. I didn't know that was featured in the game. That is so cozy. Yay! Oh, they actually did avoid the key. I thought they would just clip right through it. Anyways, no more David Attenborough for now. We've got a little pier here. Pier here. That is never going to be easy for me to pronounce. But we're gonna create another pier here. Oh man. Because I think that's gonna make it a little more interesting. We've still got a really large open basin of water here. So this is the last small additional pier we're gonna create, and then we're gonna move on to expanding this massive pier. I need to stop saying that word. I'm torturing myself right now, just to please you guys. We do the very same, of course, terraform it all so that we've got actual land to work with. And then we can bring out, let's see, does it make sense with an actual... It might make sense with a road, just to kind of mix it up. If I'm even allowed to kind of upgrade it. Alright, I did manage to upgrade it, but it wasn't exactly pretty. But it did work. And I'm just gonna upgrade these as well, create a bit of a bigger connection. And then of course we're gonna zoom out and we're gonna draw out our new... You know what, I'm not gonna say the word. You guys know what this is. You guys know what this is. And we're gonna go all the way back here. Let's see if we can just connect with a small road here or something like this. Yep. And it's of course time to do our terraforming. And we're once again just gonna follow the yellow line to the best of our ability. Also, as we move alongside these curvy bits. And then we'll see. It's probably gonna be interesting with this small segment here, because this always acts up. Anyways, let's just give it a go. And I did actually mess up this time around, because we are not on land anymore, so I am not even sure. Yeah, in water. Ooh. For some reason it still worked, but this is probably not gonna work because I forgot my one rule. Give me just a second. Hooray, it works. After a little additional terraforming at least. And we'll just downgrade this, and let's see if we need... Maybe we'll need just an additional road to connect up here. And we'll just remove this minor detailing stuff I've done. And it's time to let in all the water, although we do actually miss a bit of a corner right here. It now works, and I'm gonna let in all the water. We'll probably see a bit of flood. Oish. Actually not too bad, not a lot of flooding. I was expecting worse, but I do feel I keep reading about improved water physics in every second patch they create. So I guess at some point the water has to become nice to play with. Let's just get this zoned up as industrial right out the gate. And then out here, probably gonna experiment with a bit of offices actually. Because this is gonna be very, very close to Old Town, as well as this. I'm gonna upzone or downzone, whatever you might call it, to offices instead. And create some offices here as well. So these old areas used to be industrial, of course, with shipping, fishing and ship activity in general, but has been repurposed into offices and not living space because it's still quite close to quite polluting industry. I think that makes sense. Goodbye. Oh, I'm an idiot. Anyways, I'm much more happy with this look. I feel it's quite improved. Would be interesting to hear what you guys feel, but I think it looks a little better. It did have quite a bit of empty space before. So the big thing, of course, is going to be the expansion of this main pier. If I'm saying that word wrong this entire episode, then yeah, good times ahead. We're gonna do lots of landmass expansion here. I probably don't have to cover up this part because I'm not sure. Are we actually also gonna expand out like that? We might just do... Yeah, let's see where we end up with this project. I think one thing I wanna do is upgrade this to an actual 2-lane road. I think that's gonna be a good fit, given that this is gonna be quite a sizable area. And there's of course an issue here that I'm just gonna fix. Yeah, not the prettiest result. Anyways, onwards to the expansion. So first things first, we're gonna drag this out a bit, create more room. And then I think we are gonna, let's see, we're gonna not go entirely straight. Let's just see where straight actually is. So that's around here, and then we'll go up, and then maybe a connection such as this. How is that gonna look from space? Pretty juicy, I'd say. And then I think we're gonna go down at about an angle here. Maybe actually, yeah, let's recover a bit more land, and that is gonna be the look of it. Let's see, which I think is it's pretty cool. We can work with that, although the question is whether this segment here should actually be aligned with the segment here. Let's just see, get some of that sweet symmetry, or try to at least. Let's just disable our snapping. Yeah, why not? Make it even more interesting. And this time, hopefully I'll follow my own rule set and do things right. So we'll just make sure everything is covered with land, and then we're going to make our changes inland. Drop this to a better size, and here we go. Alright, so things are really starting to take shape now. We've got a bit of flooding, otherwise everything's looking pretty good. Whoa, look away. Look the other way, guys. There we go, things are looking pretty good, like I said. I think a final touch would be adding a mole, or what's it called, a breakwater, to kind of extend from here. Maybe at an angle with this pier. So we're gonna attempt to do that using the alley and seeing if we can create it so that it's a key on both sides. I'm gonna pause the game, and yeah, you probably guessed it. We are going to extend out here, create a bit of land, just let the game run, let the simulation kind of notice that this isn't water anymore. Wow, I really haven't thought this through. Maybe if we make sure the elevation isn't all that deep, that might help us out a bit. Ah, guys, look. Yoink. Perfect. Finally. Ooh. This was getting meme worthy, I guess. So yeah, happy that worked. On both sides. Okay, great. Damn, that looks pretty sweet. And I've got a special technique to share with you guys if you got a bit of flooding. Very advanced technique. Nice. What? Imagine using this thumbnail. I'll be accused of clickbait, but this is actually my game. And it's finally looking pretty nice. I'm not gonna tell you how long I spent fighting the flooding mechanics here, but it's actually fall, so yeah. Alright, so with these nice expansions to the port, I think I'm gonna hold off for a bit with the railway infrastructure development and instead jump into starting a bit of work on this old town we discussed. This whole area does look a little bit empty, so I think it's something I wanna start digging into now. What I've just done is I've just added some basic industrial zoning to the new areas here, just to ensure that we have a steady development in the amount of job offerings as well, and try to satisfy some of the industrial demand. Now in the meantime, we've also unlocked the tiny town Milestone, which is perfect timing for this old town because I really want to use mixed housing zonage extensively. Because unfortunately, be it as it may, this is the zoning type that really allows for small corner lots to look pretty nice, and that's gonna be quite important in building a tight, narrow, streeted old town. And I think a little change I am going to do is I'm going to, for now at least, relocate the crematorium to the outskirts of the inner city, somewhere out here. Because I felt like it took up a little too much space in here. We might actually implement it again because I think the overall aesthetics and the vibe of the asset is pretty fitting for an old town, because it really does look like an old structure. So we might end up doing that, but for now I just want to clear out this block at least so that we've got that to work with as well. So I'm just gonna grab the alley here and kind of do a crossing here so that we've got some extra space. So let's try and create this street layout we discussed in the very beginning. And as I said, we are gonna adhere to a grid layout for the most part. But I wouldn't mind that we have something that kind of breaks up the whole thing, makes it a little less monotonous. So for instance, if we were to create a small square park in here of some sort, and then having a road break off here, just to kind of make it a little more interesting and yeah, just generally mix it all up a bit. I'm hopeful that with some clever zoning, then a layout like this will actually end up looking quite interesting. But yeah, making lots of promises now. We'll see how it actually looks. But yeah, trying to keep the actual blocks very, very small. Imagining these were original dirt roads or for like horse-drawn traffic way back then. And maybe this is actually a good start. Probably want to see if I can just make a collection such as this. And yeah, I think we're good to go. So we can create a small park here, and I might create an additional small little area like that once again, just to mix it up, make it more interesting. And we're gonna break that off here, and we might go as such. Cool, so we've got something to work with now, some small open squares here in between the blocks of housing we'll be building. So for the zoning, I'm gonna use the mixed housing to pretty much anchor most of the corners, because that is just gonna look the best. And we're probably gonna see some asset repetition, but I'll try to use a mix of 2x2, 2x3, 3x2, and maybe 3x3 even, and then use a mixture of the North American as well as the European architecture style in, you know, just hopes of achieving a really old, diverse look of buildings. Alright, so we'll do a block or two, then probably jump into a time lapse if I've got a feeling it's getting a little boring. So if we pick our North American for starters, we might do a 3x3 here as we're facing Florence Street, which is pretty wide. And then we'll do a 2x2 in here. We might do a, let's see, 2x3 or 3x2, depending on the angle of this zone, which unfortunately we can't really see, so it's just guesswork. I'm gonna see if I can switch to a European and do a 2x2 here, and a, once again, 2x3 or 3x2, no idea. Something like that. And we'll do a, let's see, we'll do a something like this down here. So we're trying to work on these blocks for now. For the medium density, we're of course going to focus on the row housing. Gonna do a mixture of European and American. The cool thing about the European row houses is that they really do look a bit older than their American counterparts, and they look quite nice overall. I'm gonna go ahead and throw in some medium density housing here, as well as here. Just gonna kind of sprinkle that throughout. Gonna go for some European medium density here. Hopefully it's gonna be an all right fit. And then more row housing. Or actually we should probably go for a bit more mixed. And it's gonna be very interesting to see how this will actually look when we're gonna hit play. I'm gonna hit play before I have everything sewn up, because I want to be able to control how our row houses are growing. Because if I zone this as a row house, like if I just zone like this, we might see a single 1x4 deep lot, which I don't want. I'm just gonna break that up. I'm gonna hit play and just see how this looks for starters. And while we let the first sections of Old Town grow, we're gonna move a bit up here, because we've got a pretty sizable demand for high density residential, and I'm hopeful we can satisfy some of that by building some low rent housing, and thus also provide some lower rent options for some of our especially younger citizens. So I'm gonna attempt, let's see if we can do a 2x3, a 2x3, and a 2x3, and let's do the very same over here and see if we can create kind of like a bit of a public housing segment, I guess you could call it. Just gonna do some very simple detailing here, just add in a few paths, not too much. I want the trees in between. Gonna let that grow and see. Yeah, it definitely helps with our demand. All right, so I'm slowly running out of demand, which is getting, it's making it a little tricky to actually grow Old Town, because the low density stuff is really not what I want, because I obviously can't really zone that down here. So I'm gonna try and satisfy some of the commercial demand throughout the city. There's a bit of an open area here where the industrial section of this part of the harbor kind of ends, and I'm thinking if I zone some larger commercial lots, it might look like hardware stores and, you know, bigger commercial establishments, and I think it would make sense to have that on the edge of an industrial zone, to kind of have it like as a commercial build between the residential areas and the industrial areas. So I'm gonna zone a bit of that and see if I can kind of create the look I actually want, with some large lots, hopefully with some surface parking as well. Slow and steady, slow and steady. Yeah, let's do a bit of general expansion to the town, bring up the population a bit, try and satisfy some of that low density residential demand, and hopefully give us a bit more demand for the type of housing that we actually need to expand Old Town. Let's take a quick little tour of the new developments and my thought process behind them. This is pretty much cookie cutter suburban sprawl, low density single family housing. Although I did try to make the road layout a little more interesting than you know, a really straight grid. I also tried to keep some space in between the lots so that we've got these small bits of forest actually poking through. I really do feel that adds a lot more character to the area as opposed to just really having a straight grid here and just zoning everything, because all the trees are of course gonna be removed if you do that. So pretty happy with how this turned out. Kind of continued out here and then took the chance to, I guess, make like a science park or a high-tech area or something out here near the wastewater treatment plant. Just expanding the key a bit and adding a few commercial as well as offices. Pretty happy with how that turned out. And of course, moving into Old Town, I've tried to kind of spruce up these weird small junctions I have a bit with a lot of detailing, a lot of trees and bushes, which will hopefully look really cool when they actually grow. And I think if we go down to like street level and we look at these narrow streets, then it is kind of clear that this is the oldest part of the town. But with that being said, I'm really looking forward to these region asset packs to, yeah, just provide a much more freedom in our zoning, because it's pretty tricky to get a diverse look and not have too much repetition. Anyways, if we actually check our happiness, I noticed that we don't have the maximum level, which should be pretty easy to achieve, at least given the fact that the main detractor is the crime rate, which is very, very high. So of course the way we're gonna solve this is by placing a police station somewhere. And we've gotten a bit of an empty space over here that I think we're gonna utilize. Should provide pretty good access to most of the city. I'm gonna create like a small alley road just to place the police station on its own dedicated road. Let's see if this is deep enough. Deep enough is what I'm trying to say here. I'm hopeful. Do a bit of terraforming as well, just to make things look nice. Yoink. Let's try and place it. And pretty happy with how that's turned out. And we might even do a bit of zoning here as well to get a. Should we do some zoning there just to get a bit more commercial? Actually, I'm gonna hold off on that. Let's see. Gonna do the upgrade up front. Probably not. I suppose all 6 patrol cars are gonna start patrolling, but that's maybe just for the start here, since we've got a very high crime rate, which will hopefully be fixed soon and bring us to the top level of happiness. I'm gonna create a few districts with our district creation tool just to add a bit of extra character to the town, start naming some areas. And I'm pretty certain that Old Town is going to be here. So I'm not going to include the main arterial Florence Street in Old Town. It's right on the border of it. And I guess the story here is that Florence Street was put down a little later, like after the city was actually founded, when the settlers realized that, okay, we're gonna need a main arterial to cut through much of the island. And Old Town, yeah, we haven't really been thinking all that future-proof, so we've built our dirt paths really narrow and small and kind of confusing as well. And that's kind of how Florence Street happened, and that's also why Florence Street is kind of one of the boundaries of Old Town. Next up is downtown, of course, or like I guess you could say, central part of the city. And I'm probably just gonna go with something like this. And I'm having clipping issues. Please, it worked. I'm just gonna call this downtown for now, as we of course don't know the name of the town just yet. Gonna make this a separate area as well, because it's kind of unique. It's like a real working class row house district, quite old, not as old as Old Town of course, but one of the first areas to kind of spawn outside of Old Town. Myrtle Ridge, no thank you. So if you've got an idea for what to name this row house district, then hit me up in the comments. And then I guess we've effectively got 2 ports, because we don't really have a continuous stretch of industry that kind of connects everything, which is fine. So this is pretty much directly east. I've checked with the sun this time around instead of just saying it. So we've got kind of like a south port and north port basically. So I'm just gonna outline both of those. Alright, so I'm not gonna make districts out of everything in the town. I'm gonna stick to the most like interesting parts right now, and then I think I'm going to postpone the train infrastructure to another episode, because I'm starting to worry a bit about the height of this train bridge here. I've tried lowering it, but that's really not possible due to the 2 seaways going underneath. So even though it might look like there's a lot of extra space, the game won't actually allow for the train bridge to be much lower than this. So yeah, if you've got some thoughts or input on how we can sort of realistically bring this line down to Northport, then please let me know in the comments. Because I am kind of worried that we might need to like have a 10% incline or something, which is probably just pushing realism a bit too much for freight rail at least. Not in game, the game doesn't really care, but I don't want it to look wonky. So yeah, we're gonna hold off on that for a bit. I'm gonna see if you guys have some input I can try and implement. So yeah, I'll be shooting some cinematics for you guys, and of course I want to thank you all for the immense support, all the nice feedbacks, the cool comments, suggestions, input, all that good stuff. I feel very privileged, and I'm so happy to be a part of this. And to all those of you that comment wishing me to create more content, upload more frequently, trust me, that desire is completely mutual. I would love to have more time to do that, but unfortunately, currently in my life, that's just not really a possibility. So I'll do my best to create the best content I can, given the time I actually have. So yeah, with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I of course hope to see you all in the next one. Bye.